When a person manipulates you to gain your trust, it's called grooming.
And grooming can happen to anyone, but it doesn't happen overnight.
And by the time you realize something's wrong,
you feel like you can't stop it. Senior Pastor Paul was the head guy at my church. Everyone loved him. Because of him, I wanted to be a church leader, so I talked to him whenever I could. When he picked me to be his assistant at church, my parents were so proud, and I could see my whole future ahead of me.
Thanks for the help again, Lucas. I'd be lost without you.
He was a great mentor. We talked about guy stuff and growing up and life, and everything made sense. He made me feel smart, and when I felt lonely, he could always tell. He was my friend. The church was my whole world. I wanted to be just like Pastor Paul. So if his long hugs made me uncomfortable, or his touches confused me, I'd tell myself I was wrong for feeling that way. Because I trusted him. He was supposed to be right.
For me, the attention I got from my boss messed with my head, you know? I thought I was supposed to like it. I was stoked to have a job and to be making money. But when my boss AJ was around, things got confusing. She'd get close and talk about how I was her best worker and favorite guy. At first, the attention was nice, and an older woman maybe being into me? Every guy's dream, right? She'd invite me to hang out in her office and gave me beer.
Sometimes Paul picked me for special work with him.
I've got some more work to do in my office. Do you want to join me, Lucas?
I felt important, even though when we were alone, he would do weird things. Sometimes when we were in his office, he would show me porn. He said it was to teach me about sin and temptation. When he touched me, he said it was a way for people to show love, but it made me feel sick.
AJ was my first boss. Fresh Pack was my first job. And money was freedom, you know? And I wanted to keep my job. So I played along. Until this one night, when I closed. Hey, AJ, nobody else is scheduled for the night shift.
No, it's just gonna be us. You'll keep me safe.
My shift was almost over when it happened. I wish I could say I wasn't freaked out, but I was. It was one of those moments where your mind just goes numb, you know? And I tried to get a handle on what was happening, but all that came into my head was, I have to go.
With Paul, it got to a point where I couldn't ignore my feelings anymore.
You remind me a lot of myself as a boy, Lucas. Here, I think you'll enjoy this.
I kept telling myself, he's my friend. He's supposed to be looking out for me. But what if that's not true? And nobody would believe me anyway. In that moment, I just wanted out. Stop! I'd heard stories about weird things happening with coaches or church leaders before, but it can be hard to see when it's happening to you. In the beginning, grooming just looks like friendship, because praise, attention, and even some affection can feel harmless at first.
AJ was my boss, so it felt like I had to keep her happy to keep my job. But even though the special treatment felt good sometimes, I didn't want to feel uncomfortable at work.
Paul made me feel important, and everyone trusted him, even my parents. And he was always supposed to be in the right. Even though he gave me responsibility and praise, the way he acted made me feel sick to my stomach.
No matter how much power someone has or what you think might happen when you say no, if they make you feel uncomfortable, they're in the wrong.
I told my parents and the police, and even though everything finally stopped, I still can't believe the power Paul had over me.
Even if it's gone on a long time, and you've gone along with it, you can still speak up for yourself, get away, or get help.
All right.
Hello.
All right. Real quick, Paul, can you do me a favor and get this thing cleared off the screen over here? Because I can't see the...
Oh, they opened over there. My bad.
You're good. So yeah, I want to welcome y'all to another episode of the Living Proof Podcast. Just a disclaimer for this show, we will be discussing some mature subject matter today. So I want to give y'all the heads up that this will be a very mature theme oriented show. So I just want to let y'all know that off top. Now, with that being said, the topic for today is preventing child sexual abuse, the psychology behind it, and what steps we could do to overcome this if we are victims or know people that have experienced this. So I brought two special co-hosts today, and I'm going to give them the moment to introduce themselves. I would like to open with Celina. If the Paul's gonna, there we go.
Yo,
So
what
Celina,
up?
introduce yourself, and then after you go,
I'm Celina, the host of Life is Everywhere podcast. I've been on here another time before, so I know you guys know who I am. And that's it. This is Liz.
I'm Liz. I just graduated with my associates in human services, and I am entering my bachelor's in psychology.
all right. So I want to welcome y'all to the show. Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you.
So right off the top, we're gonna get into what do you feel is, how do you perceive child sexual abuse? I understand you guys have different experiences and perceptions with this, right? So Celina, I'm going to start with you. How do you perceive, in your opinion, what is child sexual abuse?
Child sexual abuse, which I have gone through, is just an uncomfortable state for a child, a state of questioning if this is okay, if it's not okay. And typically it's somebody that you trust, that's supposed to be keeping you safe and out of harm's way, so you don't gravitate specifically to they're hurting me. So it's a lot of questioning and confusion, and with confusion lies the devil, and with the devil gets in, things happen.
Liz?
Well, me speaking from the outside, with having clients and families that have suffered the traumatic experiences of sexual abuse, it pretty much narrows down to the comfort level of the child. So if a child is comfortable, that's when doors kind of open.
Okay, so one of the first things that I want to talk about is what the video talked about, the process of grooming, right? I think one of the biggest misconceptions that we have about child sexual abuse is, as far as we look at it as the sexual aspect of it, but there's a psychological aspect to it, right? It's all about prepping this person to make them receptive to these sexual advances, right? So one of the things that they like to do is take advantage of children, right, when they're in moments of vulnerability, right? Deaths in the family, right? Those create emotional voids. Single parent households, those create emotional voids. Drug use, right? I remember a situation vividly where, this was sometime in the late 90s where I seen drug addicts actively try to prostitute their kids or sell their kids to get high, right? So we have a lot of children that are living in a various degrees of chaos, right? A lot of the times it comes from healthy homes, right? We see a lot of sexual abuse coming from homes that we never expected it, right? The mom and dad, they give off this clean, pristine image, but behind closed doors, there's a lot of dirt and misery going on, right? So I just want to know, briefly, I want to hear your perspective on the aspect of grooming.
Well, grooming for what happened specifically to me was dealing with a relative being a babysitter, and at the age of 9, and kids love candy. It was more so just giving me candy, letting me do things that I wouldn't be able to do at home because I would get in trouble, things along those lines, and playing with me, teaching me how to skateboard, taking me outside, things that I really wanted to do. He would make sure that he was executing that for me. And my mom worked so much, so I spent a lot of time with him, and he became like a friend that I didn't have, because since I'm always being babysat, I'm not around friends. I don't have, kids around my age. He was my friend that just was my relative also. So that was just the grooming aspect, made me feel real comfortable and just like, whatever you want, I'll get it for you. No worries. If you need something. At that time we had like pagers and stuff. It wasn't no like call me on the cell phone, but he just made me feel real comfortable.
Liz?
I'm just gonna go right in it. Gonna be a lot of people upset when I say this, but it all begins with the parents starting off bringing different people in their household and signifying them as a brother, a cousin, an uncle. There's no relation, but these kids start being comfortable and attaching themselves to these people that the parents say are family members, or they say it's okay to trust this person. I've known him all my life. He's like a brother. He's like a uncle. So these kids, if these people were to do something or start doing things with these kids, they're going to be like, well, my mom says I could trust them, and why not?
Right. And I think for me, being a male, right? This is something that we struggle with as far as, we really don't talk about how it applies to us in the male aspect, right? Because it's always something that's attributed to women, right? But males are often sexually abused too, right?
Absolutely.
And it's kind of whether it be from another male or it be from an older woman, right? We seen in the video how this teenager was manipulated by an older woman because she was in a position of authority over him. And, being a man that's judged by your source of income, right? This kid is 16, 17 years old. He's trying to build his life. He doesn't want to lose his job just because he doesn't want to respond to this woman's sexual advances. Not only that, right? But the machismo, right? This masculinity aspect of it to where that's what you're supposed to be doing when you're 15, 16. Go out there and get that ass. You know what I'm saying? Right? Not understanding that a lot of these older women were victims of sexual abuse themselves, and all they're doing is passing on their toxic behavior and trying to corrupt future generations of men, right? So one thing that I did want to bring up here, and let me find this real quick, is sexual abuse on the rise during this particular year of quarantine, right? We've had a lot of people in close proximity with each other that are not going to school, children that are not going to school, children that are not being around other family members, right? They're not having these family get-togethers. So children are spending a lot more time at home with their mom, the dad, or with a babysitter, right? Because people are still having to go to work. So if you could just briefly touch on this particular aspect right here, how the lockdown could affect child sexual abuse.
I feel like even with being alone so much, kids get curious. It's normal, but just the acting out on it, I don't know, not being able to really go outside and use your imagination and do things. Like everything is so sexualized nowadays. The TV, the music, you can't go anywhere really. Even within quarantine, I feel like they're flooding media even more with it because they know the youth that they can really attack are on technology all the time. And unfortunately, a lot of parents allow it too, and they're not monitoring them. There's no discretion in the home. It's just free for all. They let technology be the babysitter. And then it's almost like too late. Then you want to look at your child's phone or do something and you find all this, porn or whatever, and now you're mad at your child, but you could have stopped it.
Yeah.
You could have intervened, or if they had some sort of questions, instead of brushing your kid off or not having the sex talk. Like I never had the sex talk, or not the birds and the bees, not nothing. The most I got was in school, but it had already happened to me.
Right.
So at this point, I'm like, well, been there, done that. And now I'm like, oh, you guys didn't go through stuff like this, so it's kind of like, and then you go back home and you're upset at your parents, and then you start this anger and things affecting. So school helped me, and now we're not there. We're doing this whole remote. So I feel like being open and honest with your kids at an early age is just what it has to be now. Especially with quarantine, you have more time to teach your child at home instead of sending them out into this world that's already so corrupt. It all starts at home. So we got to get these parents not being so scared to open up with their kids. And if you see some sort of behavior that is questioning to you, bring it up to the table. Like, hey, why are you doing this? Or, they're acting out sexually. Something's happening. Then maybe something has happened. So.
Yes, communication, that's the main thing. A lot of parents are scared because they're scared of what their child is going to tell them. They don't know what to expect when they speak to their child. Another thing is when you speak to your kids about sex or, their privates and all that, please stop using little words. Like with a girl, this is your, flower. This is your cookie. This is whatever us Hispanics and all that name their private area. Don't do that, because the child will go to the school and talk to a counselor or a therapist that doesn't know how we speak in our household. The child's gonna say, well, so and so touched my flower, and they're gonna be like, okay, touch your flower. What? She's not gonna think like, well, what the flower means to her, and she's gonna be like, well, she doesn't care, so I'm just not gonna tell my mom or my dad, because if the counselor or therapist don't care, why are my parents?
Absolutely.
So in quarantine, you got the domestic violence cases going up. On top of that, a lot of sexual assault going on, and this can be with neighbors, it's sad to say, but sometimes your own cousins, your older brothers, it could be older sisters, it could be anybody.
Absolutely. So to piggyback off what you guys are talking about, right? Quarantine, a lot of people are spending time at home. So this leads to the aspect of more parties at the house, right? Bigger people are spending more time bringing people into their home. So I'm going to open up with you for this particular section right here, where you were talking about people that bring in these numerous people around their children, right? So the question, I posed this question a couple weeks ago on a show that I did, and it was, how well do we really know these people, right? For women that date, right? What do you feel is an acceptable time frame before a man or a woman should even? I know for me as a man, I didn't really bring any kids around the person that I was dating until I knew I was going to be with that person, because there was no point in, introducing my kids to something that was going to be temporary and not be there. Right now, even though the aspect of sexual abuse wasn't present, right? It's still detrimental, bringing your kids to this. Dad's got a different girlfriend every week, right? that could lead to sexual abuse in the future, right? Because now, let's say I have a son and he doesn't learn any type of relationship interaction skills, right? He might think that this is how you interact with women, right? And then the responsibility would be on me as the father because I didn't teach him how to interact with women correctly. And I didn't teach him to teach women with respect, talk to them with respect, right? The things that we watch on TV, right? If I'm sitting there at my house and I'm watching, videos with strippers in it, he's going to think that that's what the male interaction is. This is healthy male interaction because it's what my dad does, right? Usually us parents are the first heroes. So I want you to talk about this particular aspect of society, how, we really don't know the people that we bring around our kids.
So we still don't know after we're dating that person because we always say you don't actually know that person until you start living with them. And even then, you're still learning about that person. I feel that if your kids are not comfortable with that person, I mean, obviously, if you're dating this person for a couple months, introduce them to your kids, take them to dinner or something, and start little baby steps. You can't just bring somebody in your household and have them run the household. The kids are like, that's kind of weird, like just bringing somebody in there. But always start, the dating process, do it like an old school thing. Don't just bring somebody in. You don't know what they're thinking. You might have a couple daughters or even the boys. In what I've seen more boys abuse. This is touchy. I'm going to get emotional. I've seen more boys get abused than girls. And it's because the boys don't want to be labeled.
Right.
They're like, why am I going to tell? They're going to think I'm this type of person.
They're going to think I wanted to do this.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to tell nobody.
Right.
And it's hard. And I feel for these kids that go through it because they're so scared. And it starts with the parents. You have to talk to these kids. And don't, what I was telling you the other day.
Right.
Don't put fear in them.
Right. And we can't just automatically tell the kids violence is going to be the answer.
Right.
Even though in my heart, right, as a parent, right, and I think of my daughter if she was to ever tell me something like this, right, did somebody touch her? I know in my heart what I feel, right? But if I want to get her to tell me this, I can't tell her that.
So what is it?
I can't tell her I'm going to kill somebody.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Because she's not going to wind up not telling her dad because she's going to be like, I love my dad. I don't want to see my dad in jail. So this is something that we really have to, us as the protectors, right? We need to find a way to get this information out of our children without the outward pouring of violent emotion. We got to look more like nurturers and protectors, but without now whatever happens, I mean, like at the end of the day, I'm not sitting here not telling you to handle your business. I would never that. I have 4 kids and my youngest one is my daughter, and I already made up my mind that with everything I'm telling you right now that I will put somebody in a coffin if they touch my daughter, and I don't care. You know what I'm saying? But with that being said, I won't be able to get that information out of her if I just say that, because then she's going to know that she's never going to see her dad again. You understand? So we as men, right? First of all, the first thing we need to do as men is you need to get women your own age. That's the first thing men need to do. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the time, dudes resort to dating younger women or, sexual child abuse is because they bums in real life as adults, right? And they can't get a woman. So, it's easier to take advantage of somebody that that's young and vulnerable and then just coming into their own as a woman or as a male at that. Because a lot of women do the same thing, right? They get these younger men because they have their whole life in front of them, and their life is already at the point where in shambles, multiple relationships, children that nobody's taking care of, and they see this young upcoming man as I can mold him, I can guide him, I can, because I've seen it, right? Another thing I wanted to touch on that's very important is let me bring this up real quick. Well, real quick, before I continue to the next session, I just want to read this little short part of the article. So I'm going to read this real quick, Paul, so if you could put it here so I can This was to touch on the quarantine issue, because I don't think a lot of people realize that during quarantine, domestic violence and sexual abuse has went up drastically. And it's not just a small 1 or 2%. This is almost a 25% increase, right? And not only that, but domestic violence and child abuse and child sexual abuse is directly related. You really think a man who doesn't have the respect for the mother is going to respect the children? You gotta put two and two together, right? So right here it says, there has been a rise in the number of minors contacting the National Sexual Assault Hotline to report abuse. That's according to RAIN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, which runs the hotline. By the end of March, with much of the country under lockdown, there was a 22% increase in monthly calls from younger people than 18. And half of all the incoming contacts were from minors. That's a first in RAIN's history. Camille Cooper, the organization vice president, tells Public Policy. Of those young people who contacted the hotline in March, 67% identified their perpetrator as a family member, and 79% said they were currently living with that perpetrator. In 1 out of the 5 cases where the minor was living with their abusers, RAIN assisted the minor in immediately contacting the police. As a result of looking at the information that we had from those sessions, it was clear that the abuse was escalating in both frequency and severity. So a lot of the kids that were coming to the hotline were feeling pretty vulnerable and traumatized. And it was a direct result of COVID-19 because they were quarantined with their abuser. The abuser was now abusing them on a daily basis, right? They don't have the option to leave these homes.
They can't.
Right? And not only that, now society's under some type of spell, right, where they can't see what's going on with this COVID, and now they don't even have the option to run away and escape their abuser. Now it says here that they only help with 1 out of the 5 cases, right? So what possesses a kid to go to somebody that is not their mom or dad to talk to them about these kind of things? Celina, I want your response on this one. Give me your perspective.
You said what possesses a child?
Yeah, like what possesses a child to go to somebody that is not their mom, there's not their dad, with this kind of information of abuse?
I mean, my answer would be just because you don't feel comfortable speaking to your parents because they never opened that door for you. They never, talk to you about anything even close to that. So, and then if it's happening in the home, going directly to like a parent, it's almost like you're going to break your home apart. You don't want to be, that person to do that behind closed doors. If somebody's going to do it, you're going to help me with this. So I'm going to reach out to a stranger so that you can get a different perspective to know that this is wrong and something has to happen. And I feel like it's a big eye opener. It should be a big eye opener to parents if your child reaches out to somebody else for help and not you. I would have to take some responsibility for that for sure, because God forbid my child feels that way. I almost failed. I'm like, why couldn't you come to me? What did I do or didn't do that made you feel so uncomfortable with speaking to me? So I feel like it's just a lack of parenting, communication in the home. And sometimes it is the parent that's doing it. So how are they going to talk to the offender, So they have to reach out to a source, and not specifically probably the police, because even though your parent is hurting you to that depth, you don't want to reciprocate the pain. You don't want to send them to jail. You're like, it's like a catch-22. So, I mean, you would have to go to a different source if it was your parents.
Absolutely. Another thing that's very important is child abuse, right? And this is something that almost all of us experience at some point. And you'd be lying to yourself as an individual if you didn't play doctor or play the little house games when you was a kid, or hide and seek, right? And you use that opportunity to get some alone time with your crush, right? Or a girl that you like, or a girl did that with you. At the end of the day, right, the objective reality of that is child sexual abuse. Now, whether you did it intentionally or unintentionally is not the point. We're dealing with this objectively. So, Liz, I would like your perspective on this, because this is something that you talked to me about before we did the show, how it's other children, right? The issue with sleepovers and people spending the night at each other's houses. So I would like your perspective on this.
In my case, I've seen this a lot in the Hispanic community. I mean, I know it happens in every community, but You have a lot of parents that work all day long. They're here in the country illegally. There's only so much time that they could spend with their kids. Again, most of the time, the alleged offender is an uncle or a cousin. Most of them are smuggled in the country. So they're living with other people. You have 8, 9, 10 people in a household. They bring all their kids in there. 80% of the time, they're being abused. And the kids are not going to say anything. Because, at the end of the day, they're living in their house. They know if they tell, they're going to get kicked out. They might get sent back to their country. Then, as the parent, what are they going to do? They're scared. I feel that I don't think it's the parents that fail, so to say. I know that's the first feeling that a parent's going to be like,
Right.
oh my gosh, I failed my child. They're not comfortable speaking to me. But I think the child doesn't want to hurt the parent. The child feels that if I tell my mom or my dad, they're going to think it's their fault because they brought this person in the house.
Or their dad's going to kill somebody.
Yeah, and that's what I try to emphasize so much for the parents. Do not tell your kid, don't start your conversation like that. If someone was to touch you, you best believe I'm going to go over there and kill them. You ain't never got to worry about it again. But there's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of help. There's a lot of information that people are scared to look up. Just talk to your kids. You're not going to scare your kids if you talk to them about this. You're really not. If you talk to your kids about this, they might have a friend that's going through this, and they're going to share that information with their friend.
Can I touch on something real quick?
Yeah.
So what about when it's, like you said, a child on child? Say you walk in and you see, 2 kids inappropriately touching each other. Your reaction has in that moment when you see, in that moment when you see it, that reaction that you give has everything to do with this ever happening again and how much further that act is going to continue.
So for the sake of transparency, this is something that actually happened to me as a child, right? I was maybe like 7 years old, and the other girl, she was 7 years old, and neither one of us were sexually abused as children. But you got to understand, the 80s and 90s was a very hyper-sexually era. This is when this hyper-sexually era. So, at 7 years old, I was already watching videos and things like that. I grew up listening to 2 Live Crew. You know what I'm saying? So, at 7 years old, I'm with another 7-year-old, and we over here trying to figure out, you know what I'm saying? To do things that adults do when we were neither one of us. And it was, it was consensual. It wasn't like I forced her and she forced me. It was, we were 7 years old and we were hiding somewhere and we over here trying to do this, right? Not realizing that we were participating in sexual abuse of each other, right? Because neither one of us were ready to do what we were doing at that age. And this is something that happens to a lot of us, and we don't be honest about it, right? Because we think, well, we both wanted to do this, so it was the right thing to do, and it was the wrong thing to do because we didn't know what we were doing, right? So what did it do? It created a sense of, well, this first interaction, we got caught and I got my ass whooped. Like my grandmother beat my ass all over the house, and the girl, she got caught and her mom beat her ass all over the house. You know what I'm saying? And it was something that I never did again, but I didn't know, right? I was at 7 years old. Right? But this is how important TV, right? Music and all these things influence. My mom didn't know I was listening to this music and shit like that. I was stealing the tapes, right? I'm 7 years old. She don't know what. I'm in my room playing my game and she leaves, put my little headphones on. I'm in there, right? Knowing this music is toxic, right? This is why I don't make a big deal when I hear about this music now. This is just a continuation of what already was there. It's more in our face now,
accessible, yeah.
Right? Because back then there was no internet, there was no instant social media, right? But if you talk to somebody and you ask them about their first sexual experience, almost 80 to 90% of people will tell you it was when they were very young.
Well, let me just share this. A lot of kids, and I didn't know this when I was younger, a lot of kids start experimenting with themselves at around 5 years old. and it's going to come out wrong, but it's normal for a child to experiment on their self, like masturbation and stuff. That's actually normal for a child to do. And a lot of people, when parents find out about this, they're like, oh my gosh, my child is sick. Like he has, I got to take him to the clinic. Something's wrong. No, there's nothing wrong with the child, but the child's going to start feeling, I mean, you have to talk to them, obviously, but the child's going to be like, oh, this feels good on me. Let me go try it on someone else. So that's when the communication thing begins. Like, if this is what you're doing, I'm going to explain to you that there's a time and a place for this to happen.
So to piggyback on being that parent and opening the door and seeing that, how do you feel, or what would be the right way to, react to that situation? Because I feel yelling and beating them is not the way to go. You may scare them into never doing it again, but they're definitely going to do it again, specifically because you didn't educate them on absolutely anything, what's normal, what's not normal, and just like, what do you do?
That's why it's important to start talking to your kids at an early age, so they'll know the difference.
It's like a really complicated balance, right? Because if you make sex this super taboo and super forbidden thing, right, then you got the danger of creating somebody that doesn't have that aspect of themselves, right? They become prude in their adult relationships, and that's just, it's not as toxic as sexual abuse, but it's going to lead to very lonely, unfulfilling lives as adults, right? Sex is going to disgust them in every aspect of it, because you beat it out of them over a mistake they made when they didn't have an understanding of sex. So like, a proper understanding of sex is understanding the sacredness of it, the importance of it, right? It's the unification of two people bringing life at its base level, right? That's what it is, a man and woman. Now, I'm not to get into all these tangents about what people do in their sexual preference, but at its base level, right, it's how we create life. So it's something sacred, or should be looked at something sacred.
Exactly.
The sacredness of sex has been taken out and has been replaced with perversion, right? And it became something about self-gratification, right? And we live in a world that's moral relative, where good and evil and the boundaries of what's good and evil are not clearly defined anymore, right? And I want to talk about this real quick, because this is something that you brought to my attention, right? And this is, if you could highlight this real quick, I want to talk about this. It says here, the new California bill would lower penalties for adults who have sexual relations with a minor, right? So I would like to hear both of you guys' view about this, and how does hearing information like this make you feel? Celina, I'm gonna start with you, and then Liz, you go after.
I just feel like it's opening the door and allowing people to feel that's what's not okay is okay. That because the law, at the end of the day, it all starts at home. You got laws within your home. Then you say this is not okay. You, a 14-year-old and a 24-year-old, girls mature more, however, it's not okay. And the law, that bill right there is letting the pervs, for lack of better terms, think it's okay. Like, well, I'm not going to get in trouble for it. You said it's okay. You want to do this with me? We going to do this. The law said we can, so what's wrong? A lot of things are wrong with it.
I mean, it's not only that, it's the fact that this is even a law. This is even there. Like,
you would think it's common sense.
And just to say that, oh yeah, I can have sex with this person, vaginal, and not have to be a sex offender. I just have to avoid anal and oral to not be categorized as a sex offender.
And it was crazy is the age discrepancy, right? I remember when I was 13 years old, right? You remember when you were 13, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine yourself being with somebody 23, 24 years old?
Definitely not.
And having a conversation that made any sense? And what can you possibly talk about with somebody that's that much older than you, right? This person's already old enough to drink and do all these things, and 24, they already probably finished college, and you're not even out of high school yet, or even in the 9th grade yet, right? Yet they're making this a law. right? Who does this law benefit? Anytime that you see something that doesn't make any sense, we ask ourselves, who does this benefit? Does this benefit the children, or does this benefit the pedophiles that commit these crimes, right?
The alleged offenders are like, oh my gosh,
They're having a good old time. Right?
I'm ready. Like, I have his neighbor. I'm gonna go ahead and talk to her.
Yeah, and this is everything that's wrong with the modern world, right? A lot of the evil that we find in this world is protected by the law. Okay, law in its definition doesn't entail something being good or evil. It entails that it's the policy of whatever nation or company or corporation is enacting this law. So this is why we see people like Elvis Presley, right? And people like Jerry Lee Lewis, who are very well-known celebrities and icons, and they were pedophiles, right? But nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about how Elvis, right, handpicked his wife when she was 12 years old and groomed her, went through the process of sexually grooming her until he felt that she was ready to be his childbearer, right? By very definition, it's child pedophilia, right? Yet he figured out how to bypass these laws, because these laws are not nothing new. These were laws that existed, and then people fought to take them out, and then they're putting them back because there's a group of people that have a lot of money, right? Laws get passed by people with a lot of money. People with a lot of money in some circles practice child pedophilia. This is a philosophical practice of theirs that they do, right? So another thing I wanted to talk about is how pedophilia and child abuse is portrayed as a mental instead of a criminal aspect. So I would like to hear, Liz, I'm going to start with you on this one, right? Because I know you're very passionate about this. So I'm going to start with you on this particular topic. How does it make you feel knowing that this particular topic is classified as a mental illness more so than as a criminal act?
They're trying to normalize it. That's all they're trying to do. And it's destroying these kids. And then these kids grow up being offenders. That's the problem. This is not a mental illness. You're not born to be a sexual offender. Like, you're just not. It frustrates me. It gets me. It's just.
So I'm going to read a little excerpt here because I want you to hear how these people try to portray this, right? In the last 2 decades, new insights on the biological basis of human behavior have led to a notable change in how social phenomena are interpreted. One important example is the biological study of sexual arousal, which from an evolutionary perspective is considered the basis of social interaction. I'm going to stop right there, okay? The basis of social interaction, according to these people, is how attractive somebody makes you feel when you look at them. This is what science says, right? The experts that y'all put so much validity into, right? And swear that these people know more than everybody else. They're basing our social interactions on the level of attraction that you have when you meet this person, right? Even though I interact with thousands of people a day that I'm not even attracted to in any capacity, sexually or even mentally. You know what I'm saying? Because most people, people that know me on a personal level know I'm not really that friendly. I'm not a social type of person. I like to be to myself. You know what I'm saying? So, they're already opening the door here now for us to be like, well, we're a social, sexual society, right? So it's okay. Let me continue on. On one hand, the biological and cognitive processes that determine sexual arousal have been better understood and biological and cognitive. Models of sexual arousal have been formalized. On the other hand, the experimental method is increasingly applied to the study of sexuality, mainly when altered sexual arousal is observed, right? An interesting topic for this is this transdisciplinary approach, and increasingly important is the assessment of pedophilia. Pedophilia has been depathologized as it is defined as a mere sexual preference for prepubescent children, right? So they're classifying this, the medical industry has classified this as a sexual preference, right? It's a crime. And by saying this is a sexual preference, right, you open the doors for these type of civil rights movements like the LGBT community and these people that have real sexual preferences, right? That's a sexual preference. Raping little kids and being a pedophile is not a sexual preference. It's a crime. You know what I'm saying? It's not a crime to be gay. It's a crime to be a pedophile. But they try to put it all into one, right? And they use the LGBT community as, hey, we were part of you guys, right? We're like you. We're just a sexual preference like you guys. So, and you know, I would like more people in the LGBT community to be like, yo,
against
out.
it. Yeah,
y'all not with us,
right?
You know what I'm saying? Because they're using your movement to hijack and to get their point across. That's why they added an extra letter, right? The
Q, is it
the pedos and they got a different name for it now.
Yeah.
You know. So real quick, I want to hear you guys' perspective on this aspect of mental health. Celina, I'm gonna go to you for this one.
I mean, like, you know, Liz said, you're not born with this, but with being a victim of it, I feel mentally it does affect you. So then, yes, I feel it can become a mental health issue. But as far as it, you just coming out the womb and this is it, like, no. Like, I would even, at the point I am in my life now, I would love to go back and figure out why my cousin did what he did to me. Why? What, did something happen to you? Was, you know, are you just basing your actions upon actions that have been done to you? Like, what?
Is that person in prison now?
No, nothing happened. No, I waited too long to come out with me. Yeah, there wasn't enough hard evidence for it. So basically, it was just, he got off with it. He got away with it, and it took years until, you know, my family, because everyone knew, but it was just like, all right, just keep them away from each other. Just keep them away from each other. Like, that was just the answer to it all. Nobody addressed it. To my knowledge, he was never, nobody was like, yo, why would you do this? Nobody, it's like nobody had my back about it. They were really like, hush, hush. Like,
that's
all right,
why
it happened.
You when I
just
had
hush.
the conversation, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything.
And it took
to
forever. I mean,
provoke
it took in my adult years to realize, yo, that wasn't your fault. I mean, I grew up with people, oh, you a fast girl. Like, if you've listened to my last podcast episode, that was it. Like, she's fast, she's this, nobody got to the root of it though. Like, I wasn't just born like, you know what, I'm about to be this little fast little freak out here.
Yeah.
That wasn't my goal in life. And that's what I would love to know, like, why did he do that? What makes a person offend this way? And I just feel it's just reoccurring. It just happened.
It's all on a behavioral level. It's all mental. Sometimes the offender might have seen something and seen that person get away with it. And they're in their mind, they're like, he did it, I could do it. And then they probably try something, you know, something small, even though none of this is a small issue. But they probably tried it with somebody else and got away with it. And they're like, well, I'm about to try a little more with somebody else.
I think another thing, too, unfortunately, with, I don't know how to even word this, but less attractive children to people, like, they get made fun of. You're ugly. You're never going to have nobody, this or that. Their self-esteem gets broken down so much that it's possible that they feel, well, the only way I'm ever going to be able to get any type of play or anything is hurting somebody, you know, doing it my way, because I'm not going to be able to get it consensually because nobody's going to like me. Nobody's attracted to me.
And that's a very important aspect of it too. You know, we see this like all the time with people that, you know, feel like they've been kind of like marginalized in life, where they act out their marginalization by doing extreme acts of violence or extreme, you know, if you ever been to a club, right, and you see that chick that's really not that hot, or she's maybe a little bit on the big side, right, she's usually the one doing all the extra shit, right? She's the one on the table, she's the one being loud, doing the extra. But if you look at her, you see that she's the one that she really don't have the, you know, it's like that, you know, and it's unfortunate, you know what I'm saying? I'm a short guy, you know what I'm saying? I just accept it for what it is, right? You got some people that, when you're comfortable in your own skin, these things don't bother you, right? There's some people that are not comfortable in their own skin. Paul, you wanted to chime in here?
No, I'm just, I got everything like.
I thought you was giving me the heads up like you wanted to chime in.
Well, no, I got everything finally like, you know.
Oh, yeah, the screen, I seen that you got it.
So now I can actually take my hands off and I haven't been paying attention, but you know.
I see you working, man. I appreciate it.
Well, that's another thing. A lot of they don't get that attention from their friends, from the crowd, from the community. They don't get that. So it's like they tune that out when they go out. They're another person. But I'm going to get this attention here, and they're going to look at me this way, and I'm going to get some play here, you know?
So, not to cut you off, but because we're very limited on time, and I want to make sure that we end the show on a positive note.
Absolutely.
So, where can kids begin to go get help? Now that we have, I know you sent me some links here for this some hotlines and stuff. So this first one here is the RAIN, right? We talked about them earlier. This was the organization that they've been getting a lot of calls during the lockdown. So if you're in Cleveland, right? Because I know a lot of y'all here in Cleveland, you know, a lot of y'all women, you know, date a lot of different dudes, and a lot of y'all dudes date a lot of different women, and y'all bringing these people around your children. I need you to do me a favor and ask yourself how well do you really know this person, bro? Talk to your children, right? And ask them, like, you know, are you comfortable? You know, I ask my children all the time. They tell me they good. I can't do nothing but take their word for it, right? But I still go the extra mile, and you know, just to make sure, because you never know. And there's this hotline here, so I'm gonna put a link in the chat. I'm not even in the Discord, Paul, so I'm gonna send it to your Facebook.
Okay.
When you get a chance, you could just upload it in the chat.
And have people like write these numbers down, have it accessible. Don't just, all right, that's the number, I know where to go. If there's a situation that your child that can't get to the internet, they don't know how to look up this number, have this number, write it down, put it on your refrigerator, set it and forget it, you know, but it's there, and let them know, God forbid you ever have to use this number, this is what this number's for. And have it accessible. Yeah, please.
Let them know there's a lot of resources out there.
So last week, before I started this, last week I did an episode with my friend Mr. Snow about transformation, right? And I noticed that you were able to take a lot of this pain that you experience in your life and transform it. And I noticed for you, right, you grew up in the city, you've been a good friend of mine forever, right? And I noticed that you were able to take your experiences and your pain in life and transform it, right? So where now you're a college graduate and you got a lot of things going for you. So I want both of y'all to touch real briefly on how you guys took pain and transformed it into something positive that is giving you something more to look forward to in the future. Celina, I'm gonna start with you, and then Liz, you go after her.
The biggest thing for me, I always remind myself and others that, you know, you need to be a victor and not a victim, because the victim mentality is going to keep you in this revolving door of pain and emotional, you know, remembrances of a place that you weren't comfortable. So you're not going to really be able to work through that if you're sitting in it. So you kind of have to just deal with what happened, process it, and figure out a way that's going to make you feel better. Like if every time you think of something and it brings you down, when that memory comes in, figure out something else that you can think of that's going to alleviate that pain. Like, you know, forgive yourself for it. Forgive the offender. Not saying it's making it okay. That people have this misconception of forgiveness. Well, if I forgive the person, that means it's okay. No, you just have to bring that peace and realize how crucial peace is in your life, and that it's not your fault. So be a victor and not a victim, and know there's other people like you that you are touching and inspiring and motivating. Like, man, if she can do it, she went through something very similar, I can do it. Please let people know you're there for them. It's okay.
Right.
Exactly. You are. I would say that you are the boss of your own life. You make your own decisions. Don't limit yourself to certain things and certain aspects in your life. You can always do better. Just because your best friend is not there, remove yourself and go for what you want. You know, I've been here, 26 years, and I've been gone almost 7. And I didn't think I would be able to do anything. But I had a different mindset, and I'm like, I'm just going to go for it. Yeah. And always know that even if you're a victim, a survivor, someone that went through something, you can be the voice for someone else that's going through the same thing. Speak on it. You know,
absolutely.
So.
And, you know, that's one of the best ways to prevent, putting our kids in situations where we got to worry about abuse is by
Awareness.
making sure that we living correctly, right? By us living correctly, right, and learning how to interact with our spouses correctly, our friends correctly, discern who's good and bad for us, who is toxic for us and around us, then, everything is the law of probability. I'm a mathematician, right? So everything with me is the less people that I have around my children that are operating on a low frequency, the less people I have to worry about doing something to my
Yes,
children
absolutely.
in a negative light. And just being honest with yourself. I think a lot of times we're not very honest with ourselves. We allow love to blind us. And it's not just, relationship type of love. It's just love period that we have for people, whether it be friends and family, right? A lot of times we let the love that we have for them blind us to the red flags that they are as individuals, right? I haven't experienced this personally, but this is just for an example. But let's say for instance you have a friend that's been your friend all your life, and you guys just happen to have kids, that are the same age. In my household, I operate a certain type of way. And I remember we talked about this on the family show, right? I operate a certain type of way in my household. This person might operate a completely different way. Yet their kids and my kids interact very closely, right? So now this is something where we have a conflict of interest, right? Because kids have a tendency, when they hang with other kids, they pick up these bad habits, right? So this is how we can nip all of this in the bud by, sometimes you just got to cut people off. It's really that, love it requires a lot of cutting off. Love for yourself. You got to cut off bad habits, bad decision-making choices, all these things that that keep us, always in this state of drama. So
Yes.
yeah, I really hope that, the information that we shared on the show today helped a lot of people. Before I wrap it up, though, I want to give each of you the opportunity to address any points that I may have missed or anything that you want to specifically say. So I'm going to give each of you a few minutes. So Celina, you go. Liz, you close it up. And then make sure you give the show a plug, too, for the people that don't know where to find you.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
So, Celina, go
I
ahead.
think the show went great. My biggest thing that I just want to highlight again is just addressing the matters with your children in a nonviolent way. And if you do ever walk in and your child is being inappropriately touched or vice versa, don't wig out, don't freak out. As much as inside you're like, what? Oh my goodness. Keep your cool, breathe, take a big deep breath before you react and separate the situation and just assess it that way. And just education, bring awareness, and sit your child down and let them know, things are normal. Don't let them know you're never gonna have sex. You're not, because it's gonna happen. Right. And there's healthy ways to do it. Make them aware of contraceptives. Just keeping safe from even STDs and just everything that ties in with sex. Just bring awareness to your children. Please do that. And again, I'm the host of Life is Everywhere podcast. You can find me on Facebook. Celina Sanabria is my name, and IG is Life is Everywhere podcast. Thank you.
I would just say protect your kids. That's the main thing. If you have not spoken to your children, your nieces, your nephews, even neighbors, if you have not spoken to them, you don't know how to approach them, there's links and there's websites on how to start the conversation. Don't just go right into it. Always remember, when your child or niece or nephew comes home from school, ask them first, how was your day? Who did you interact with today? Who did you see?
You meet any new friends?
Exactly, because that's how you're going to get stuff out of your child. Oh, we have a new so-and-so, or we had a sub, or, the gym teacher, the coach, this. They start giving you information. So always try to have your child answer the questions for you before you even ask them.
Gotcha. So before I wrap it up, I just want to say I want to thank to both of my co-hosts today. You guys did an excellent job. This is something that was a very important topic, and I really felt that I needed you guys' insight on this, different reasons, right? Obviously, when you had told your story on your podcast, it really I was, I get mad now just thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
So I felt like it was something, and then this is something that you told me that you were very passionate about, and I was like, let's do it, let's make it happen. So I want to thank y'all because it went very smooth, and it went exactly how I expected it to go. Now, my thing to the viewers is, what I would ask out of y'all is that y'all go, whatever it is that you have an opportunity to do today, and you go have a conversation with your kids, or you be honest with the things that you had that happened with you in your life, right? And you get that toxic energy out of your life, because carrying it in and harnessing it in all these years and taking it to every relationship that you get into is going to be detrimental to your success in the future. I can guarantee it. Not only that, but, you know, us as men, if we're going to be out here protecting the kids, we have to do a better job of protecting them from other men. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, we need to be honest. You know, that little dude that come to your house and make that little slick ass joke like, oh, your daughter getting big, you need to punch him in the motherfucking mouth when he says shit like that, because that's inappropriate. Right. And if you ever do that shit at my house, I'm going to punch you in your fucking mouth. I'm just letting you know. You know what I'm saying? And this is addressing to adults, though. This is addressed to adults. It's not to the children. Right. But if you ever make a slick comment about my stepdaughter or any of my daughters in front of me, it's going to be physically violent for you. And it's not going to end well. I'm just letting that be known, so there's no confusion. With that being said, when it comes to the children, we have to learn how to interact with them on a more personal,
get involved.
Yeah, and let your viewers know also that if they ever have any questions or concerns, people call me out the blue all the time or message me, and I give them the best advice I possibly can.
So real quick, I want to share this comment that my dude Alex left in here, because this is very important. And he says that children are a lot more conscientious of the world that we give them credit for. Yeah. This is very true, right? And he says, try talking to your kids instead of at your kids.
Exactly.
Right? And this is profound, right? Because a lot of times we think, we look at our children like they're pendejos or something.
Yeah, that they don't know
a little
nothing.
bit more than we think they do.
Yep. Very true. You can learn a lot from kids.
This is why we can learn a lot from the kids. You know, kids don't have that, you know, they learn how to lie by watching us lie.
Yep.
We're watching how we interact. So if you're honest and the kids see that you're establishing a standard of honesty, that will be their standard when they interact with you.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, I want to thank everybody for coming out today. I'll give an opportunity you guys say goodbye. I thank y'all for coming out.
Thank you.
All right. This is episode 18.
That's correct.
We have our you forgot to put her Cash App there too.
Share this episode.
Make sure y'all share. Like, subscribe, you know, and you know, every little donation counts, you know, because we're trying to keep this thing going. So I appreciate everybody for coming out today. Thank you and enjoy the game.
Peace.